I'll start again. Good evening, everyone. It is 6:30, and welcome to our Education Committee of the Board of School Director meeting for May 11, 2022. Thank you for your participation, and without further ado, we are going to get this meeting started. And first up for research and evaluation, we have Dr. Lewis.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Mark Lewis, and I am the Research and Evaluations Supervisor in the district. So I've been asked to speak a little bit about my role in general. I'm assisting with analysis of academic data, and I've also been working a great deal coordinating the district-wide survey projects with Ms. Seward and others, and working on analysis of those results of our staff survey, family survey, and student survey. So that's been some exciting work lately. I'm also responsible at this point for facilitating researchers working in William Penn, whether they're some of our own staff or external researchers. So I'm mainly here to introduce Dr. Pardini. I did not have the pleasure of hearing about her research until recently because the process started before I began, but I'm very excited to pass the baton to her, and we're going to be hearing about her dissertation. She's one of our teachers, and it's very exciting to see staff, continuing their development and their education by doing research in the William Penn schools. So, Dr. Pardini, I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you. I'm excited to share what I found with the board. For the board members who don't know me, I'm Trisha Pardini. I teach at the Penwood High School Green Avenue campus. Been in the district since 2015. So my dissertation, I looked at the impact of the Success for All Reading Edge program on student achievement at a Title I middle school. I did this on the Penwood Middle School from 2015's data through 2019. I had taught at the middle school during that time. The reason I chose to look at the SFA program was because the research was divided over the overall impact of SFA programs. Research that had been completed by SFA founders stated that it had a higher success rate with student achievement, but research that was done by independent researchers showed minimal gains using SFA programs. So I chose to do a quantitative analysis to determine if there was a statistically significant difference in students' reading scores after the SFA Reading Edge program was implemented at Penwood Middle School. So what I did is I looked at the PSSA and SRI scores to analyze the differences between both of them. For those who don't know, so we've got our PSSAs that the students have to take at the end of the year. SRI is used in English classrooms, I believe also at the elementary level, but it's used at the middle and high school level to understand the student's lexile reading score. It's more of a formative assessment, while our PSSAs are going to be more of a summative. After running my analysis, my first research question focused on PSSA scores. I followed one cohort. They were in 7th grade. 2015 to 2016, I compared those PSSA scores with their PSSA scores in 8th grade in the 2016 to 2017 school year. So it would have been 1 year after implementation. And the analysis, I ran a paired sample t-test. It showed no significant difference in PSSA scores. The mean actually dropped for the mean average of PSSA scores with that cohort. For the second research question, I looked at SRI scores from 2015 before the implementation of SFA and 2017 from after, right before they took the PSSAs. That did show a significant difference, and the mean did grow on the SRI. And then with the final research question, I looked at the Penwood Middle School school average per year and compared it to the Pennsylvania average to see if we grew, if we got closer to the Pennsylvania average. And over the years from 2015, 2016 to the 2018, 2019 school year, we only gained 5 overall points. At one point, we actually lost points in our overall average for the school. If you're curious about the tables themselves, if you're looking at the slideshow and it says data tables, I do have my full quantitative, like the statistical analysis with each one. So you could see the mean average of each year. So if you wanted to look like the mean and even with the standard deviation being high, it did mean that we had a huge difference between the way that the scores were running in each of those years. So if you're curious about statistics, the data tables would be for you. So based on what I found, these are my recommendations. With it seeming like SFA both worked and didn't work based on the SRI versus PSSA, I think we have to look at, is the program designed to look at the Lexile reading levels, or were we implementing these programs to improve student achievement on standardized tests? If the district's trying to improve on standardized tests, SFA was not doing that for us. With the mean average going down every year and no statistically significant difference in the cohort, it's not doing that. So my recommendations are that we should look at SFA's impact at the district level. SFA was used in elementary schools and the middle school from, I believe some elementary schools implemented it in 2011 and past then. The first year at the middle school was the 2016-2017 school year. I think you should try to look and find out what the true impact was of having SFA for that long in our district. And I would also recommend looking at the cohort that I analyzed and see if it affected student achievement on the keystones. Because when I did one of my internship studies outside of this, I found that the keystone scores actually were going down when the SFA kids came to the high school. So it may be interesting to look at that and see if maybe SFA had any impact on keystone scores at the high school. We've been using the SRI as a predictor for PSSAs in Penwood, and I think my research is showing that we need to double check that, because the SRI made it look like more students were going to be marked proficient or advanced on the PSSA than were marked when we got the PSSA results back. So the SRI is an effective tool to help teachers understand students' levels and needs, but it may not be the predictor that we believe it is in the way we're using it in the classroom. I would suggest that we keep doing reading intervention at the secondary level, because it's been proven in research, if secondary students aren't reading at that level, they may struggle in other subjects, because science and social studies textbooks all assume that the student's reading on grade level. But I would say implement a true intervention program with Fidelity. SFA was used as a school-wide curriculum, not as an intervention program. We had students who were reading on grade level in SFA. So most of the research for reading intervention programs would say it should be a small class size true intervention, not a school-wide curriculum. And then if you're going to do intervention, the research suggests that you need to ensure you have teacher buy-in before you implement, and make sure you have all the resources necessary. For intervention programs, they want you to have small classes, the ability to move students around a lot. And I know at our schools, I know everybody's dealing with staffing issues, but you may not be able to do that as frequently. So before implementing, make sure you can. And my suggestion for curriculum is to continue to use the William Penn School District teachers when evaluating curriculums and creating curriculums, instead of purchasing school-wide programs, because SFA didn't give us the improvement that I think we were looking for when we purchased it. So maybe taking our resources and looking at the teachers we have and trying that way, and then run data to see if that is more effective. So that's what I have.
All right, thank you so much. And we've got some time for questions for Tricia from anybody.
Can you take the share off, please, for a second, just so that everybody can be on the screen if that's possible? Thank you. I just wanted to say before we get to questions, if I could, I just want to thank Dr. Pardini and Dr. Lewis. Some of you may be asking, why would we share this information? And I think it's very important for us to analyze what we are using. And that's one of the benefits now of having Dr. Lewis in place, is that we will be able to analyze some of the tools that we have. And also we have a number of staff members who are completing their doctoral degrees, and some of them are investigating or studying things that we've done in the district. And I think that information is very important for us to learn from. And so I thank Dr. Pardini for definitely sharing this information. Additionally, most of us know that we did move from SFA and we are utilizing Wonders. And one of the things that we will be doing this year is understanding the relationship between Wonders and how our students are performing. I think we invest a significant amount of money in academic resources, and I think we need to make sure that we're getting the results as a result of that investment. So this will not be a one-off. This will be something that we will be continuing to do as we move forward within the district. So I just wanted to put that, I guess, frame around the why behind it. And we will utilize this information to help us get better. So I will stop there, and definitely the floor is open for questions or comments from board members.
Thank you, Dr. B. Coates, for sharing that context. And thank you, Dr. Lewis and Dr. Pardini, for sharing your findings and sharing your role, Dr. Lewis. Are there questions for those of us who are here?
Yes.
Is that Monique? Okay.
Yes.
And then
Hello.
following Monique, I will acknowledge Jennifer Hoff, Ms. Hoff.
So I just want to also say thank you, Dr. Pardini. Also thank you, Dr. Lewis, for the research that you've done and the team behind you as well. My questions, first and foremost, I love the suggestions that you have provided. And I guess my question is more so to Dr. B. Coates and yourself, is what ways will we be able to implement or go about the suggestions that you have offered with this?
So one of the things when I started, the district was in the process of transitioning from SFA. So I think the district has taken the first step. And I know several board members asked me during that time period, my thoughts about the Wonders curriculum. And I always look at whether or not it is a green curriculum, which means that it will align with 21st century standards. And so the Wonders curriculum is. But with any curriculum tool that you use, you have to utilize it with fidelity. So that's part of the reason why, and I know that we've, had some discussions around this. That's part of the reasons why we do things like common plan and time. That's part of the reasons why you want to have teachers working together to make sure that we're understanding the curriculum. Maybe so you're doing something different in your classroom that I may need to do in mine. It helps all of us get better. So also with that tool and with other curriculums that we have for this year, there are interventions associated with it, and there are also assessments. So what we will be doing at the end of this year is looking at those assessments and seeing how those students who did well on the assessments, how did those students actually perform on the PSSA? How did those students perform on the Keystone? So that we can start making some relationships between your performance on our curriculum assessments and how you would perform on our state assessments. Because the ultimate goal in our strategic plan is for us to reach proficiency, not growth. And growth is fine, don't get me wrong. I love growth, but we want our students to be proficient. So that's what we're moving toward. And that's part of the reason why we've implemented the system and the design that we have so that it is aligned and coordinated. And so the other suggestion, I think, was making sure that we utilize our teachers. When we went through the review process for the math as well as the science curriculum, we did utilize teachers to vet the curriculum. I believe Ms. Hoff was a part of a lot of those meetings. And at the high school level, we did something different. We didn't actually purchase a curriculum. So again, we are utilizing the suggestions that have been provided, and we will continue to do that. And I just think that's the benefit of having somebody in the district that's doing the research on things that we're doing, and it helps all of us get better.
I also will say, as somebody who had to get data from the district and then analyzing it, Dr. B. Coates and Ms. Brown did fantastic with having current data to help me. We did find that there wasn't always well-kept data up to this point, and the points that Dr. B. Coates put in at the middle school of the MTSS and making sure the data was aligned, it was really great to see that as a researcher coming in and looking at data, because Dr. B. Coates and Ms. Brown really made sure that we were tracking everything so that you could run the analysis. That may not have been as clear previously. So I think it will be easier from Dr. Lewis to keep running stuff based on what I even observed of Dr. B. Coates and Ms. Brown.
Thank you for sharing. Jennifer or Ms. Hoff?
Thank you. First, congratulations, Dr. Pardini.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome. I remember when. So I didn't get to look through your data, admittedly, but was there a way to filter out students that moved around that weren't with us for a year, but then took a test? Like, was there a way to get those students out of the data?
So what I did is Miss Jones and Miss Brown's office helped me with it. We pulled all students, like if we're looking at that cohort in their PSSA. The student had to have been in Penwood for the 7th grade PSSA and then for the 8th grade PSSA. If they were not, I removed them from the data set so that they wouldn't count. And then for the SRI, it was the same. If they hadn't been with Penwood for the 2015 SRI, we didn't run their 2017 SRI.
Got it. That's awesome. And I appreciate your context, Dr. B. Coates, and I look forward to doing the same with Wonders and all our curriculums, because what looks good in presentations 3 years ago, moving forward to 2022 and beyond, may or may not work for our young folks, and that's really what the most important thing is. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Are there additional questions?
I didn't have a question. I just wanted to make a statement and just also just say, I'm just so happy that we've done this research, because this was something that teachers, parents, SFA was something that they were, making complaints about. And I just feel like when you hear the voice of your community and you listen to your teachers and you really buy in, and I just feel like this was something that we can show to teachers and also show to the community that, we've done the research behind it. It's bad that, we've gotten to the point where we had to, endure all those meetings and not do the appropriate research then, but I'm just glad that we're doing it now. And, you had Ms. Lewis, some other people, so many different community members. Ms. Miller also spoke about SFA as well. Different people have come up and teachers as well. So I'm just glad that we've gotten to this point where we're doing the research on it. So thank you once again.
Before we move on, are there additional questions or comments? Seeing none. Next, we will focus on technology, and we have Mary Agnew, Executive Director of Blended Learning and Educational Technology. Mary, you're up.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Before I start going over projects that we've completed, I just want to give a big thank you to all the IT staff and support staff whom without none of these projects would have been able to be completed. So we have a variety of tech liaisons at the different buildings. Afia Lewis, Sarah Greenfetter, Lawrence Duffy, Takara Penix, Samantha Christopher, Delaney Jones, Carrie Bodner, Trisha Downey, Kyle Willis, Kiara Mathias, Michelle Cahoon, and Deshauna Maxwell. And then our building techs are Derek Scanlon, Marie Sutton, Robert Bob, Tyrese Hopkins. Our help desk pro is Christopher Santel. Our IT project manager who keeps everything running is Brian Salmon. Our network administrator who does all the behind the scene work is Russell Rosen. And the person who really keeps everybody on track and organized is our secretary, Veronica Miller. So I just wanted to give everybody a big thank you because none of this would have been possible without them. So first I wanted to go over the IT audit that we did with the DCI, that the DCIU had conducted last year. And so we have made progress on all the tasks. And if you want to see any of the progress, you can look at the IT progress tracker. which tracks the progress for all the different tasks that we have completed. So the tasks that we have completed are, we are fully staffed. We have 6 IT staff members, 5 techs, and a network administrator, in addition to project manager. We did an email domain consolidation. So previously, staff had 2 separate emails. They had a William Penn SC and a WPSD email. We combined them both so that they now have 1 email. We did a single sign-on. So the single sign-on is, we do a lot of online curriculum. We also have a lot of different applications that we use throughout the district. So what we did with the single sign-on is, now people can sign on just using their Google login. So they don't need to remember a variety of logins and passwords. They can just sign on using their WPSD email account. And that goes for staff as well as students. We did email protection and archiving so that we are compliant with the district board policy. We implemented CrowdStrike, which is a next generation cybersecurity program, which not only can contain threats to the district network, but also uses AI and algorithms to predict threats that may be occurring and to set up barriers from them occurring. We implemented iTunes, which pushes out updates to devices so that students and staff don't have to physically bring their devices to us to receive updates. We can now push them out virtually. E-rate, we already discussed this, but E-rate, we updated our network infrastructure at a tremendous savings to the district by using the E-rate system. eSchool integration, students can now log into their home access center using their single sign-on. So other projects that are in progress, I am working with the DCIU to create a 10-year infrastructure plan to kind of lay out what materials and what stuff that we have that would need to be updated and how much that will cost the district, so that we can kind of plan ahead and plan out for 10 years what needs to be updated, how much it's going to cost, when will those costs be incurred. We're reviewing our IT procurement process to determine what do we need and what would be the best vendor, and taking inventory for that. Our camera system is being upgraded. Our HVAC server is being upgraded in the admin building. Our phone system is being replaced, and we are investigating different programs now. And then we are upgrading our server infrastructure, and that will actually take place over the summer. Our server was over 7 years old, and now we are going to have an upgraded server at a tremendous cost to the district, because we're going to have it hosted by the DCIU instead of having it in-house. So in addition to things that were covered on the ID audit by the DCIU, the other projects that we have completed are, we have implemented a ticket system via the service desk. And as of Monday, when I put this in, we closed over 6,100 tickets this year. The boardroom, we updated the boardroom audiovisual equipment, and we'll be using that for the first time on May 16th. We put in a domain controller at the administration building, which allows and controls what devices are put onto our network. We replaced the district voicemail system. We replaced the food service point of service sale terminals in all the cafeterias. We updated the faculty and staff Active Directory accounts and student Active Directory accounts. So that would be their William Penn email accounts. Some students had double, some students left the district, new students were coming. So we did a complete cleanup project. Brian Salmon did this. He did a complete cleanup project to really go through and make sure that all the email accounts match people that are currently in the district. We also did scholarships. So scholarships located at the buildings. It works at the eSchool. So what scholarship does is if a student is late, if they come in late, instead of having a secretary or teacher having to put the late in, the terminal where the students type in their ID number and receive their late pass will automatically mark that in a school for attendance. At several of the buildings, we have positive behavior rewards implementation and also student rewards system. So they have been integrated so that we can keep track of that to really work on reinforcing positive behaviors with students. We also configured 15 touchscreen Chromebooks for a teacher project, a pilot project, so that teachers can, as they're instructing a classroom, they can walk around and look at data or instruct students as they're walking around. They can use their touch Chromebook and it will come up on the board for the students. And so far this year, in preparation for next year, the IT staff has prepped over 800 Chromebooks for distribution, so they will be ready for the beginning of the school year. And we have 340 left that are partially prepped and will be completed by the end of June. So Chromebooks. There are a lot of processes that have been put in place to address many of the concerns regarding students receiving Chromebooks at the beginning of the school year. So I placed many of the procedures here for you. So we implemented a damaged Chromebook procedure. So tech liaisons and building administrators would know what to do if a student damaged their Chromebook. We also set up monthly checklists for items that buildings should complete to keep everybody on track with inventory for the end of the school year. We have monthly building inventories that are now completed by the buildings of the number of Chromebooks, as well as lost and damaged Chromebooks. The DCI have moved, and I'll talk about this on the next slide in more detail, but we will be contracting with the DCIU to repair district Chromebooks, and I'll explain in detail why we made that move. We've also switched to the DCIU to clean and repair Chromebooks this summer. So we also established a plan for students with Chromebooks for summer enrichment, ESY, and summer school. So we worked with the curriculum department and the special department to determine how to best provide students with Chromebooks for the summer programs with as little or no impact to the buildings in which the programs are being held, which was an issue last year. We have met with the tech liaisons and building administrators throughout the school year to discuss the processes, gather feedback, and make changes if necessary. So many of these procedures have gone through many iterations based upon feedback that we've received from the buildings. So our current Chromebook insurance versus repair, this would be why we made the switch to the DCIU for repair of Chromebooks. So currently we have Stay Mobile. Stay Mobile recently declared bankruptcy and are in the process of having a retired president come back to distribute the repaired Chromebooks that are at their site to districts that had repaired Chromebooks there, but they will no longer be repairing Chromebooks. But our current program, the cost was $50 per device and you had to buy a $36 Chromebook case. So it basically came out to $86 per device. It was insurance as well as repair. The pickup and drop off of repaired devices were weekly at the IT office. Stay Mobile employees were not allowed to go into the buildings to do the pickups weekly. So what would happen is the IT techs would collect broken Chromebooks from the buildings. We would place them in the IT office, and then Stay Mobile would come once a week to pick up devices and return repair devices. One of their business model, because it was they expanded very quickly and it was so low cost, it took several weeks to months to have Chromebooks repaired and returned. Especially this year, it really hit us with the turnaround time. It went from being weeks to months. So we have Chromebooks that have not been returned for months. So we actually looked at our Stay Mobile contract, which was running out, and we were in the process of moving it anyway before they declared bankruptcy, just so that we would get our devices returned to us quicker. So we looked around and decided to go with the DCIU, which is starting a repair shop, because there's no insurance flat fee, because it's only based on repair of Chromebooks. And I'll get into a second why we think repair is preferred for our situation as opposed to insurance. The pickup and drop-offs of the repaired devices will actually be in the school buildings because the DCIU employees have clearances. So they will be able to deliver them directly to the school buildings instead of the school buildings needing to hand them off to the IT department. And the turnaround time is estimated at 1 to 2 weeks. One of the big benefits for us really looking around and determining that we wanted to move away from Stay Mobile earlier is that Stay Mobile did multiple school districts throughout the country. And so now a lot of those school districts are scrambling to find repair providers. So we have a leg up because we are starting our repair hopefully with the DCIU at the beginning of June. So several districts throughout Delaware, Montgomery, Chester County, including Philadelphia School District, use Stay Mobile. And so now all those different districts are going to be competing to find repair company. So we're out ahead of that. So we also looked at insurance earlier this year when we were looking at going with insurance as opposed to a repair model. So most districts use Worth Chromebook insurance, and we had previously used Worth Chromebook insurance in our one-to-one program at Cypress. When we used it previously in 2017, it did cover loss. That was because Worth had bought out a company, and the underwriters of the previous company, which was called OTEL, they actually covered loss, but Worth was phasing that out as those contracts that they inherited were ending. So they no longer cover loss. We could not find an insurance company, and we talked to other districts as well that did cover loss. They do cover theft, but not loss. So Worth also doesn't cover intentional damage. They do cover theft with documentation, accidental damage, certain repairs, and natural disasters. So one of the big deciding factors with the repair and with the DCIU is that with the Worth Chromebook insurance, if a device is damaged, we would have to submit a claim, and after the claim is approved, they will send out a single mailer per device to the district. The device will need to be placed in the mailer, mailed to an out-of-state location. The average repair time is 5 to 7 days after the claim has been approved. And if the parts are available on site. If not, then it could delay the repair. So the Worth insurance currently is $29 per device, which will cost the district $188,500. So one of the big determining factors in going with repair over insurance is the amount of lost versus damaged Chromebooks within the district. So what I did is I took the lost number of Chromebooks at different buildings as well as the damaged number of Chromebooks at different buildings and came up with a percentage for each building. So every single building does allow students to take the Chromebooks home. So if you look, you'll see we have a significant number of lost Chromebooks. And so that is why we are suggesting doing repair over insurance, because the lost Chromebooks will not be covered. And lost Chromebooks so the average cost for a Chromebook is about $356,000 because it's not only just the Chromebook, but we have to asset tag it. We have to put it into the admin console. So the total cost of a Chromebook to be ready for a William Penn student to use is around $356,000. So if you
356,000 or 300?
356. I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
No problem. Sorry.
I'm so happy. I was like, my last slide. But yeah, so so $356. So. And you can see with varying degrees, different, schools have a different success rate. And I think that, I've discussed this with the principals and tried to share best practices between buildings, because you'll see some buildings are more successful than other buildings. So next, a question had come up about the PLC. So the PLC is currently accepting applications for next school year. We are doing it early. And this is only for students in the building who would like to apply to the PLC. The PLC staff has been collecting information from our current students to find out if they are returning to the building or if they want to stay in the PLC. The reason why we want to have this information prior to the end of the school year is so that guidance counselors can start changing schedules so that they're not hit with a giant change of schedules before the new school year begins. And also so we can determine staffing, not only like our teaching staff, but also our teachers of record who we use for elective. We will have an additional window in late June, but we really are encouraging people to apply now so that we get the bulk of students that are going to be in the program, so that those schedule changes can be made by counselors before they leave for summer break. And all transfer requests are shared with building administrators and counselors and the special education department to review prior to any transfer taking place, so that they can determine if it's in the best interest of the student. So does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I was just gonna say, if I could, I just wanted to try to also set the frame for this one. Can we come off of share screen, please? So most of us remember the audit that was done by the DCIU. There was a scale that they showed us where we were, I believe it was at a 0. And the goal was to, the highest number you could get to was a 5. And that was based upon us making improvements with our infrastructure and what we were doing. So a lot of the things that Mary talked about, while people may not see it happening, a lot of those things have occurred. And so hopefully at the beginning of next year, once we've completed 1 full year, we will be able to come back with the DCIU and share information around where are we on that 0 to 5 scale. And I just think it's very important to continue to update not only our board, but our community, because people talk about investing. We're investing in our public schools and we're investing in our infrastructure. And that is what's helping us to continue to do what we're doing. A lot of times we go to the computer, we turn it on, we do what we need to do. We don't realize everything that's in the background to make that work. So I do want to thank Mary and her team for that. I also wanted to give a little backdrop around Chromebooks. We probably had a rocky start this year, I would say, with Chromebooks. There was lots of, I'll just say, communication that wasn't always the best. And I think that came from various aspects, including myself. But I will also say this, we definitely made sure that we would not repeat the same mistake that we made again. Therefore, the processes that Mary talked about and the links that are in there, everyone knows what the process is, what we're supposed to do, who is responsible for doing what. So we're all working together on it. We still have some kinks that we work out because different things happen at different schools, but there is a process. It has been communicated. It has been shared with all teachers as well as with all staff members. So are we perfect? Probably not, but I think we have a process in place that we're working through, and we will continue to do that. I am looking forward to working with the DCIU. I think that's definitely going to afford us a quicker turnaround time, and we will be prepared and ready to start. The date that I've communicated is that we need to be ready for school to open on August 1st. For the buildings that have summer programs, that may be August 15th, but that's when we really need to be ready. So the DCIU has that information and that's what we're working towards. So I just wanted to give the board that perspective and that backdrop. And definitely let's have questions. And that's also why I asked our principals, and I want to thank them as well as our assistant principals for being on the Zoom tonight, because to be truthfully honest with you, these are the people that you see who are doing the heavy lifting. And I want to say thank you guys very much for doing that. I know sometimes it has not been easy. We've had some challenges, but we're working through them. So we'll definitely open up for questions from board members or others.
Thank you, Dr. B. Coates, for those comments and for the context that you shared. Thank you, Ms. Agnew, for the very thorough details that you shared. And I will just make a comment to start. I took that report that we took from the IU, that audit, very personally, and we were at between the 0.5, but we were definitely not at a 1. And from seeing the implementation and the efforts that have been put in place, the systems that have been put in place, I'm excited that we're moving in a positive direction. So thank you for all of your hard work, and thank you, principals, for the heavy lifting. Are there other questions, concerns, comments from the board? I see Ms. Hall.
Thank you, Ms. Cook-Henry. Awesome job, Ms. Agnew. Thank you. And Dr. B. Coates, I very much appreciate the context. I think with my budget hat on, it would be awesome just on page 8 to say who is on our salary and who is provided by the DCIU. And a super shout out to our tech liaisons for the work they do, because that's just awesome. I would point out to school board directors that the presentation we're seeing tonight is different than the one we received this afternoon. So, you know, we should download it from the chat maybe, because I got confused quick. I wondered, what number do you have in your mind, a repair number that makes a computer not repairable, but just replaceable?
So there's actually a repair list, and we discuss this with the DCIU. So once it reaches over $250, they said that it's not worth repairing, which would be the motherboard, like breaking the motherboard, or maybe a combination of other things that are broken with the machine.
Great. And how is the difference between a repair that needs to happen, and these come with a small warranty from Dell, correct?
They do, but not for the repairs that we have seen this year, which would be cracked screens. Like Dell will repair if it's something within the computer, but like cracked screens, broken keypads, missing keys, like most of the repairs that we see are not really covered by the Dell warranty. That would be if the device itself was defective, not damage due to usage, like we've been seeing this year.
Right. Wouldn't a battery be covered for a small period of time? Or no?
Battery is covered for a small period of time, but what will sometimes happen is so in some houses, if the electric is not upgraded and you don't have a power surge, that's not covered.
Okay.
The problem that occurs that a surge will occur and it will fry the battery. That's not covered because that's not due to the battery being defective. And we do see that more often than not. We see that a lot, actually. We see it more than you would think.
No, not surprising. But motherboard is on this list, and that would be probably a warranty repair. No?
It depends. Like I said, the same thing with surges might be due to the surge, not having a surge protector and stuff like that. But at that point, that's where we really would have a discussion with them about repairing it or not. When you're getting to that, in addition to the motherboard, it could possibly be the battery as well. So at that point, it would just be yeah.
Last one. So this so we might have, right? This is a might have seen more loss this year because we're coming off of COVID, right? Like this was our first full year back. So we would hope that the loss numbers would change 22-23 school year because, right, where the loss numbers are included when the students were home all last year, right? Or coming back in the spring.
We lost throughout various buildings throughout the school year. So I think there's a couple of different factors that can come into play. And that's why I really want people to, I really want the principals, I will go to the principals meetings. I really want them to learn from each other, to see what some buildings are doing to really prevent loss within their building. So it's been throughout the year that the loss has occurred, not just from students returning from COVID. And I think that there's a variety of different factors that come to play.
Okay.
Principals are really, as Dr. Beacott said, doing the heavy lifting. And so they're really on the front line, but I feel like people could really learn from, you know, Jen Safuni and Dr. Watson-Bowie, who is a extremely low loss rate. Same with
Great.
Ardmore, also certain schools have extremely low loss rates, so.
Great. And last question on the PLC. As new student to us coming in, will always have the choice between PLC and building, no matter when they come in, correct?
Yeah, new student registering with the district will always have that choice. And we have a program that we do with registration so that when a new student registers and chooses the PLC, that they alert us, as well as the counselor at their building.
Great. Thank you so much.
Are there other questions? Comments?
I didn't have the opportunity to dig deep into the Chromebook policy, but I wanted to say, was there a solution made with regard to if a student, well, if a parent did not come or sign the permission form to release the Chromebook? Did we figure out a way around that?
Yeah, so if a parent does not sign the Chromebook form, the student cannot take the Chromebook home from them. It must
We're losing you, Ms. Agnew.
and the student can use it while in the building.
I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Oh, okay. So students, if the parents do not sign the form, the student cannot take it home with them. They can use it while in school, but they cannot take it home with them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no additional questions, we're going to continue to move our agenda along. And next we have EBS and Lakeside update from Ms. Germana and Ms. Seward.
Good evening, everyone. It's just me tonight. Ms. Germana is actually celebrating her children who are winning an award at a ceremony. So you just got me tonight, but that's okay. I'm gonna try and cover for both of us. So I would like to share that I'm coming back before you after a year of working with these two providers in support of our students to provide additional supports in our schools, knowing that we were going to have a greater need for our students this year. So the first link that I'm going to ask Ms. Brown to click is the model that we developed. And I know it's small, but I'm going to just quickly run through it. And this is a model that we actually met with our principals, our counselors, our social workers, along with Lakeside and EBS to make sure everybody understood what their roles were in the context of intervening with students who need some type of intervention around behavioral health and trauma-informed interventions. So here we laid out in each one of the boxes the role of the stakeholder and what coordination looks like for that individual within the school. And so you see how it's like circular, because the avenue of doing this is the intervention meetings, but follow-up interactions that happen after that meeting to determine how effective was the strategy that was suggested to be implemented. What does success look like? You see at the bottom, it says providers written indicators of success for each behavioral intervention. What should I see to know that the intervention that was suggested and implemented worked? And how do we keep monitoring that? So all of that work is happening with these different stakeholders in the schools in support of our students. So we can come out of that one. So as a result of creating this model, we wanted to continue to check in with our stakeholders. So these are just the meetings that we had. And again, the objective of the meeting was to monitor the collaboration and to make sure that these two stakeholders understood what their roles were, how they were collaborating, and making sure that they were not providing services to the same student, because we knew that we had a larger number of students who had need. So there were plenty of students to go around to serve. Next slide, please. So this slide really is, Ms. Germano was going to speak to it, so I'll speak to it at a high level. And if there are any questions about it, we'll collect those questions and respond to them outside of this meeting. But overall, the meeting highlights, which I'm really happy about, we're utilizing that EBS behavioral health support team. There are 3 individuals who are behavioral health specialists. And when we run into concerns around concerning behaviors, being able to reach out to what I call them as the dream team to say, hey, I need help with how do I intervene? This student is exhibiting these behaviors. What should I do? I'm not sure what else to do. They come in and they walk hand in hand with our school teams, our principals, our counselors, our social workers who may be at the table if they're involved in a particular case, and our Lakeside teams to share experiences and strategies to support the teachers, if it's a teacher who is seeing these behaviors in a classroom, or and to support the counselor if they are struggling with additional interventions strategies when they're on a one-on-one check-in with students. So all in all, we are working to collaborate with EBS and Lakeside to make sure that not only are we providing the service, but we're also measuring it as well. We're collecting the data, and we're actually in the process of completing our data collections to see how effective these partnerships were. I can say for our Lakeside contract, we collected data for each time a Lakeside neurologic coach interacted with a student or provided services in support of a teacher. And so we're analyzing that data now. And our next step, we have our next collaboration meeting actually on the 26th of May. Next slide. So providing support for next year, looking forward, I really want to say thank you to my colleagues, principals, and we also had counselors at our last principals meeting, where we asked for a debrief, give us the good, the bad, and the ugly about what did it feel like, how did it work for you this year with working with Lakeside, tell us how we can do better. And based on their feedback, next year we are looking for the elementary schools to provide 8 academic interventionalists. I'm sorry, maybe please excuse me, interventionists. And in our secondary schools, the Lakeside Neurologic Coaches model actually was very successful for them. And it was a request of the principals and counselors to retain that staff there for next year. And so Also, myself and Ms. Brown collaborated on our draft plan for PD for next year. And so we structured this around major areas of focus throughout the year. So we wanted to really rethink how we offered professional development in this realm of trauma-informed care. So I really tried to take a deep dive into each one of the professional developments and the themes that we need in our district. So really paying attention and listening to the themes that we hear continuously. So August, that's the building relationships with students block or theme. And these are the PD titles and the audience members that we believe should be a part of this. And then as we move forward, we get into student behavioral health. Again, thinking about the time in the school year, it's the beginning of the school year. Sometimes it's that honeymoon period, and it's a perfect time to, work on our strategies around what do we do for intervening with behaviors on the front end. So you're learning that skill now on the front end. Then moving forward into our winter months, responding to student behavior. So now it's, okay, how do I reframe student defiance? How do I work with triggers and be self-aware about when I may be triggered? So we go through all these different themes, and then moving into the spring, trauma-informed student support, and going into the May month. So we put this together as a draft to give you a sense of where we're thinking and where we're going. And would love feedback on this document and where you need us to go with from there. So with that, I'll give it over to Ms. Brown. I'm done with this slide.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. I just wanted to just share with everyone that we are continuing to, and just want to make sure that it's clear that we're continuing to work with and on the PD schedule as it relates to Lakeside and their involvement with the district. So that document is a draft, and others will have the opportunity to dig deeper into that document to make sure that it is representative of what we as a team want to do going forward into next school year. Are there
Any
questions?
Are there questions? Thank you, Dr. B. Coates and Ms. Seward. Are there questions? And can we remove the sharing, please? Jennifer, Ms. Hall.
I want to say thank you, Dr. B. Coates, for the framing, and Ms. Cook-Henry for getting this on the agenda. I would like, and I told Ms. Brown that I would send these questions also for response, and I don't expect a response tonight, but I would like to look at some metrics like EBS students served, Lakeside students served, the differentiation between what student sees whom, although you did outline some of that this evening. The issues that students are having in big buckets, not small buckets. Costs, staffing numbers for both organizations per school, and reimbursement for services rendered when applicable. So I'll send them to you, Ms. Brown, for response for whenever. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. We will respond back promptly. We do have that information. However, we did not want to speak to that because Gina is not on the call, and we wanted it to be a collective answer. So we'll anticipate those questions and get feedback to you promptly. Are there any other questions regarding EBS and Lakeside?
Seeing none. Are there any other questions for the good of the order before we adjourn? Seeing none.
Ms. Cook-Henry, I just want to make an announcement regarding summer enrichment programming. You do have the slides. I will go back to sharing the screen in reference to, this is just an overall announcement, as everything is on our William Penn School District website, and we do have registration live. Parents are registering.
Thank you.
Ms. Brown, do you see, oh, Mr. Denenza is answering the question. There's a hand up in the,
Staff, sure, I will answer, we will respond to this parent. We will give them an email address to send us an email to and help them with the registration process. It says Warren is typing an answer. Thank you, Warren. And it looks, and Ms. Cook Henry, looks like Ms. Douglas has a question.
Ms. Douglas?
Oh, I see. She asked a question in the chat. Are we planning on continuing with EBS next year? As of right now, we are planning on continuing with EBS. The format may look and feel a little different, but as of right now, we are planning to continue with EBS. And again, I'm encouraging everyone to please register for summer enrichment. It is free. Board members, please tell your neighbors, your cousins, family members, anybody that's enrolled in William Penn School District. It's free of charge to those students, and we want to make sure everyone benefits from that service that we're providing.
Thank you. Am I missing anyone else?
It does not look like it. We've answered all the questions that were in the Q&A, and I do not see anyone who has their hand up that's an attendee. Well, it says one person's hand is up who is an attendee, but I don't see who it is. Oh, Leslie Douglas. We've answered her question. Okay. I think we're good, Ms. Henry.
Well, we are good. And because we have a great team here, and thank you for the reporting this evening and the work that you all continue to do. We appreciate you. Have a great evening.